So, after many, many years of heartbreak and turmoil and anguish, we got the first issue of Static that came out last month. And finally, with this month, we have the premiere issue of Icon and Rocket Season 1, Issue 1 of the Milestone Returns line. Written by Reginald Hudlin and art by Doug Waite and Andrew Curry. So, finally, got a new issue of Icon and Rocket. I have been not a fan since the 90s, but a fan since my Air Force enlistment, since like 2017, man. I first discovered Icon and Rocket in Minot and actually have their first issue from the 90s still, basically still in its sleeve, still unopened. And I got in a dollar bin at one of those like a game. It was like a game shop in downtown Minot, and it was in the dollar bin, and I just picked it up. This is when I started reading, getting into Milestone. I got like 7 issues of Milestone comics from Minot, man. Out of Don't ask me how they got there, but they ended up there, dude. I don't know how the hell they got there, but I did. But so I'm a fairly new fan of Icon and Rocket, and I know this is kind of like a new territory for you with the characters. So well, I
Mhm.
guess what is your impression of this first issue and everything along like that?
Okay, well, I'm glad that I was able to track down an actual printed copy of this. I mean, any issue number one, whether it's good or bad, an issue number one for a comic book is a fresh start. It's
Hmm.
it's a reason to kind of want to invest or at least devote a little bit of attention to it. I mean, issue number ones are a dime a dozen in this current comic book landscape. But I went ahead, I got the original cover, Milestone Returns, Icon, and Rocket. And just to get this out of the way, I am not a fan of, for whatever reason, these Milestone Returns comic books. It's hard to get the actual like the actual milestone covers. You know what I'm saying? For Static number two, I got the DC variant cover. It doesn't say milestone anywhere on the front of the fucking cover of the book. But
Oh damn.
anyways, yeah, bro. Like, were you able to get the actual milestone covers?
Yeah, I'm able to get them no problem. Well, except Static One was a little bit of a trouble because it's Static number one, and I had to actually through a couple shops, so I had the variant for that one. But Static Two and Milestone and I mean Icon and Rocket number one was fairly easy for me to get the original covers.
Okay, all right. So, but digress. I did get the milestone cover, and I'm kind of glad that I was able to get that because I almost got the variant, but then it was like, nah, that's not what this is about here, you know.
Right, right.
So back to your question here. Kind of reading through this, I do like that the origin of the character of Icon is only about roughly 3 or 4 pages here. I mean, we get some great artwork. We already know he's an alien. Cool. You know,
Right.
we've seen the alien crashes on Earth backstory numerous times throughout numerous different mediums. So this
Hmm.
story of him being on an alien ship trying to prevent something from happening and being the sole survivor is cool, but you know, I'm glad that there weren't too many pages devoted to that particular part of the story because we're here to get to a certain point. We want to get to the point of Icon and Rocket. At some point, I'm sure excuse me, if they want to, they could do a full detailed backstory on where Icon came from and everything like that. But right
Hmm.
now, we are perfectly fine on that. We don't need that. So I like that we are getting straight to the point in explaining okay, he's an alien, something happened, he ended up on Earth. Now, to kind of get into the next portion here, and and I'm not dodging your question because you asked my initial impressions here.
No, you're good.
Now, do I think that it was necessary because okay, how do I put this here? Georgia, 1843. Now I'm no historian or anything like that, but if we see a black man and his black wife speaking to each other and warning each other not to speak too loud, and then the male character referring to overseers, and then his wife referring to tattletales in this particular setting, it's not too difficult to know or to have an understanding on what era in American history our character of Icon is arriving to Earth in, right?
Right.
Now, am I going to say I'm not going to look at this and be overly negative about it? I don't know if it was necessary, if we really needed panels kind of devoted to that, just so that we see that he landed on Earth in a particular era of history. I mean, it's okay that they did it because they didn't dwell on it. We didn't get a 2-page montage
No.
of, and I'm glad that we didn't.
Yeah.
We didn't get a 2-page montage of Icon going through Black American history. Again, which is perfectly fine, considering that one of the names involved with this issue could have taken this a lot further than it went. So I'm going to give kudos to Mr. Hudlin in regards to that there. We see, so I'm not overly critical of that because they didn't dwell on it too much. And we establish he's alien, he turns into a baby, and he's raised by this family here and grows up in America as a black man. That's the form that he took based on the people who discovered him. That's perfectly fine. We transition straight into Dakota City in modern age here. Now, my impression on this here is that the artwork is nice, but the general setup to me does seem a little bit generic. I'm just gonna be honest with you.
Yeah, man.
It just seems a little bit generic because okay, so you have a group of black teenagers in a car just driving around, and they're looking for a typewriter or antiques. So they're just looking for a house to break into. But why are they doing this? What reason do they have to want to risk their freedom to try to break into houses that they think are abandoned? Like, I don't necessarily understand why that was necessary to the story if that was only a vehicle for these two principals to end up meeting each other. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't know that we couldn't have gotten to the point of Icon meeting the character that becomes Rocket in another way. Like, it could have been 10 different ways besides 4 dumbass teenagers trying to break into somebody's house and break the law.
Right. And it's not like we know these 4 dumbass teenagers are linked to a potential supervillain in the future. That might be the case, but in the original run, this is pretty much a one-for-one spot-on interpretation of that first issue in the 90s. They didn't really switch it up too much. They stuck to the formula.
Okay. I mean, and again, the only question that I kind of have is why is this necessary? So we have, and I'm just going to kind of look at one of these panels here. Okay. So let's see what we got here. I can't believe how stupid I was back then, but things happen for a reason. This is one of our lovely gentlemen inside of the vehicle here. These females are weak-minded, no matter how smart they think they are, and you got to know how to talk to them, Deon. Yeah, but when you getting some, she's a good girl, Big Mike. I keep saying you can't rush it, but I got plenty side holes for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. That is pretty much, yeah, that's pretty much direct. Yeah, that's pretty much your direct black toxic masculinity, thug, street thug, gangsta dudes, whatever how you want to call it. Right in front of her, and she's pretty much playing like the abused victim of their manhood, so to speak. So kind of being peer pressured to go into the situation, being forced and being manipulated to get into this thing. It's just not very natural in delivery.
Oh man.
To put it blunt, it's not very natural.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and well, see, that's a different conversation, but digress.
yeah, yeah.
Um, it's all in the eyes of the beholder, I suppose. Okay, the mission is complete. They break into the house, and we notice that there's a picture. There's pictures on the wall, and the person in the picture is the same, regardless of each respective period of time, which kind of leads to a little bit of intrigue and making our female character wonder who is this person in the pictures. And then all of a sudden, boom, right around the corner, we see a chiseled Adonis of a man with an open shirt, a six pack, and an immaculate hairline, basically confronting these young teenagers breaking into his home. Now, before we get into what's on page here and what was actually said, try to make this make sense for me here, please.
Okay.
Since this is, as you were saying, a one for one kind of retelling of what was originally on page, how does this compare to what was there back in the 90s?
How does this compare? I actually never read the first issue because I never opened it because it's in its original sealed
Okay.
packaging. So I didn't
Mm-hmm.
open it up. I have the first issue. But from what I can tell, I don't think he was in I think he was kind of in just regular like a regular robe, you know what I'm saying? I don't think a six pack and all his muscles and were showing when he first confronted these individuals. As a matter of fact, I'm not, don't quote me on this, but I don't think he was showcasing his powers yet. When he confronted them in the 90s. So it was a little bit more of a reserved appearance rather than just out the gate. I'm kind of Black Superman coming right at you. You know what I'm saying? From the get go.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because even his robe is flowing like a cape in this one. He's just like, yeah, he already has the superhero thing kind of in place from the get go in here.
Oh man, like, bro, oh man. All right, so let's get right into the dialogue here,
I
because I'm not gonna say. Oh, I'm 50-50 on some of this dialogue. So let's get right into this here. So, of course, they break into this home, and one of these idiots has a gun for some strange reason. We don't know where he got the gun, but he has a gun because I guess you can't break into somebody's house. You can't commit a B&E without being armed with a weapon as well. So that's two felonies for the record if we're keeping track here, but digress. Okay, Anthony, what are you doing with the gun? What it look like? Protecting us. We broke into his house. Whatever. You told me no guns ever. Son, put the gun down. I ain't your son. Oh man. A break-in is not a big deal, but attempted murder is. You're gonna hurt yourself and your friends. Listen to the man, Aunt. I ain't gotta do a damn thing. But you better stop trying to roll up on me for you catch some lead in your chest. Man.
You've got to say thing. He just said you a damn thing. THANG.
Oh man.
Thing.
Okay. So what are you gonna do? That's right. What am I going to do because I got a gun, so I'm running stuff around here? Don't delude yourself, you little fool. You can't even control your shaking hand, let alone what happens in this room. And then a gunshot to the chest. Okay, so why is this necessary?
This is necessary because I believe he wanted to showcase even further how she's in bad company and she needs to move on to they're basically holding her back in life. I
Mm-hmm.
suppose they just want to make more bad guys out of these idiots, more so than what they already are. And maybe a showcase of his powers for the first issue, saying that he's
Okay.
invincible. He can fly, he can take bullets, kind of showcasing his abilities. That would be my guess for how this all went down.
Okay.
In these couple pages.
Now, I will say this. For as spotty as I felt some of that dialogue was there, I do like what they did on the very next page because they cleaned it up. They did a good job of cleaning some of that up there. The
Mm.
next page, Icon kind of gets off his ass and shows off a little bit what he's capable of, and basically sits these young boys down and sons them in a way
Mm.
that was kind of necessary. Yes, some of this dialogue may have been a little bit preachy, but I'm not too bothered by it because it was much better than some of the stereotypical, typecasted, kind of unrealistic dialogue that was on the prior page there. So,
Right.
obviously, you all have done something you shouldn't have done, and you shouldn't have done it to me because I very much value my privacy. Let's make a deal. If you ever attempt a crime again and you ever tell anyone what you've seen here today, I will let you go. Or never, excuse me. And that's what I'm looking for. You've seen me do several impossible things today. So therefore, you make a promise you can't keep. Understand that if you go back on your word, I will know. In this panel, he lifts up the gun. I think he's doing this with his mind or anything like that. Crushes the gun and basically makes these dudes shit bricks as they exit his house here. I don't have an issue with this panel because I do kind of feel as though, and without even getting too kind of out of pocket here, it does count for something seeing these young black men being forced into a position to where an older black man is sitting them down and actually telling them something that helps.
Right.
So
Hmm.
I'm okay with that because he didn't get into the whole I'm telling you this to save your life, or y'all are some lost niggas right now, and this is what if I was anybody else, I would have did X, Y, Z, or if you do this, this is what can happen to you. No, this is him basically giving them a life lesson that applies to this situation that they can take and apply to other situations. So I am perfectly fine with this particular panel of dialogue because it made sense.
Yeah.
How you feel about that?
Yeah, I agree with you because his facial expression, the artist did a good job of kind of showcasing you. He basically said all what you said with his face. You know what I'm saying? With the way he looked at him and the facial expression he made when he crushed the gun. He basically was sending the message without too much dialogue, without too much you have done wrong here. And statistically speaking, you can die from gun violence. So, this and that and the third, and you're street thugs and you need to fix your life and doing all this and that. So I like that it was short, sweet, kind of straight to the point of what he's trying to deliver, showcasing his powers, flexing a little bit, and making sure that they deliver on a promise for his privacy. Could he have handled this situation without showing his powers? Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Because I got a feeling that that's why he's kind of just hermited himself and hid himself in his mansion for however long he's been in there.
Mm-hmm.
So I like these few pages here. I think they did Hudlin did a better job on this page without going too much into the dialogue that was presented in the last couple pages, especially with the slang and kind of the offness of it. So it felt more natural on this page.
Yep. So now getting to the end of this issue number one, and this is kind of where I'm not gonna say it gets a little bit confusing, but this is gonna take some thought and clarification here. So our character, who now is known as Raquel, goes back to this mansion after one night of seeing this thing happen. Her life has changed. She's come to the realization that she was going down the wrong path by hanging out with this group of individuals here. She goes back to this house and now has a discussion with this person here. So in the Dakota verse, people know what superheroes are. Is that kind of what the vibe that I'm meant to? Is that what I'm meant to kind of understand here? Like, superheroes are not a unknown concept within the Dakota verse,
No,
right?
right. No, you're absolutely right. And I think Icon is supposed to be the first one to kind of represent that.
Okay.
Because other than that, the Dakotaverse and DC's universe kind of merged into one for a storyline in the past, but Icon is really supposed to be the catalyst for like the superhero era of the Dakotaverse.
Okay. So, because and this, I kind of got a little bit of a kick out of this here. So, Raquel says, I want you to be a superhero and I want to be your sidekick. I mean, partner. Or what? What do you mean a superhero? Well, there are heroes like my mom or firefighters who save kids from buildings, but you can be a superhero, a person who fixes impossible problems and inspires everyone to do better because you are doing it. And this actually kind of made me laugh a little bit looking at this panel
Mm-hmm.
because for her, the name that she gives herself is the Prodigy Girl. I don't know if this was meant to be an inside joke, but I got a good kick out of it because of the internet. The internet has an issue with your female heroes that kind of know how to do everything. Your female prodigy. Do you think this was intentional? Did they kind of put that in there, or is this just kind of one of those editorial things that just makes too much sense to be a coincidence?
I think this is editorial, kind of, especially with DC and Marvel, with the backlash that they get on the internet, and they're self-aware. I mean, when they promote and market these books, they have to turn off the comment section on YouTube. So, I think it's I think it's a jab, man. I think it's a little jab and a little self-awareness of internet culture. Because you see in the next page, it says she has a drawing of Icon that says Black Power Revenge. So I think they know a little. I think that's definitely intentional, man, with what they were going for.
I like it. That's
Yeah,
all I.
a little meta commentary. Never hurt anybody.
That's all I got to say. I like it. I definitely like it. So from here, we kind of get into this conversation, and this to me is my favorite part of this issue number one. It's not action, it's not splash pages or any of that, but I like this conversation between the two of them because it's clear that our character and Icon has been around for a long time. And without reading necessarily what was on page, the conversation they have involves him questioning why he should be a superhero. If I do this, what if this happens? Or why should I do this when I know that this is going to happen? You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
I kind of like these are the conversations within the context of superhero comic books that I like to hear because these are valid questions. In real life, a person with superhuman abilities could never work because the nature of us as human beings is to automatically be skeptical of it or to automatically be pessimistic of it. The current culture that we live in doesn't allow a person to actually be genuine without any type of skepticism. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could plant a garden for somebody, and that person that you planted that garden for will tell you you still got dirt under your fingernail.
You're
you
right,
know?
man.
And and I'm just paraphrasing, but he kind of echoes a similar kind of sentiment to her in response to her telling him that he should be a superhero. Like, how you feel about that, bro? Am I reaching with that, or am I kind of on the right track there?
I think you're kind of on the right track here. Simply because, like you said, we know Icon has been around the block for a long time, since 1843. And one of the, I guess, criticisms of the character is that if he was basically born in 1843, grew up and had powers and was self-aware that he was an alien and took this form, and
Mm-hmm.
knowing that this form gave him a disadvantage on his current environment, why didn't he do anything in those times to help further his conditions, so to speak, right? Like, why didn't he help black people, right? Why didn't
Mm-hmm.
he enter the Civil War? Why didn't he fight in the Civil Rights Movement? Why didn't he do this X, Y, and Z if he had all these powers and whatnot? And we get the sense from this couple pages that he probably has tried something.
Man.
He's probably done a lot of things. We're just speculating here, but we're getting the feeling that he has tried to do a lot of things to help turn around things for black people,
Mm-hmm.
and it has ultimately led to failure. He's basically saying, "What's the point? We ain't never gonna make it."
Mm-hmm.
Essentially to her.
Man, man, man,
That
man,
is
man.
essentially what he's saying to her. Um, but I feel like we get a little bit of a flashback sequence on the last page of
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know if it's like a past lover of his. Like, we see that he has tried. They're in Paris and they're eating some food, and she's like, "Why don't you basically paraphrasing? Why don't you try to do this, Y, and Z? People are suffering, and you can help them out." And he's still kind of pessimistic, but he's like, "Okay, yeah, sure. This is Paris 1921." And he's like, "All right, I'll try it. Sure." We get a little bit of a sense of that. It's sort of like with Raquel, with Rocket, that the youth is sort of reigniting the elderly, so to speak. The youth is inspiring the elderly. It kind of gives them a little bit of a spark that has been gone in the past. A spark just been jaded by the world, and that youthful optimism and that youthful that youthful energy to want to change something kind of got him back in that outlook of like, sure, I'll try it again. Why not? You know what I'm saying? Because we could definitely tell he was not going to be moving in that way if she didn't uh, confront him or question him about why not do it. If she didn't go into that household, for all we know, that he would probably have been just chilling in that mansion for Lord knows how long, right?
Right.
So this is kind of like the youth. I think she kind of represents the youth, putting a spark in the old to kind of rejuvenate them into to keep on fighting, or to give them a new sense of like, well, let me try it again because I got beat down by the world so many times and I failed so many times. What's the purpose? But it's like you're trying for the next generation. At least that's kind of what I got with these couple pages. What about you?
Well, so just to kind of back up here,
Uh
and
huh.
and and I mean, I this doesn't got nothing to do with nothing. I just thought this was kind of funny here.
Uh huh.
Um, so she says, "Okay, let me ask you a question. When you see those D boys selling drugs on Martin Luther King Avenue, does that make you sick?" His response says, "What do you mean?" Now, on the panel below, I don't know why. It's just funny to me that it said Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard and not Avenue. But I don't know why that was funny to me, bro. You know what I'm saying? I don't know why. It was just funny to me that she said Avenue, but then it says Boulevard.
Boulevard
You know,
might
but
be an editorial typo. Who
yeah.
knows?
But then she kind of is educating him on who Martin Luther King was, as if he didn't know this already or whatever, right? I don't know if he was just playing coy or what. But I do get the feeling that those sentiments are there because his response says the economic imperative will always ensure there's someone there to sell drugs as an escape from poverty and despair. That right there tells me most of what I need to know about his outlook on how he can actually impact and maybe make things better. Everything that you said in terms of maybe he's already tried it, someone's told him this, the optimism was there. So at one point in time, he was already optimistic and his outlook on what he was capable of was different, which is the entire reason we see this flashback to Paris 100 years ago. Something, excuse me, something had to have happened to where his outlook changed, to where the way that he feels about what he is capable of doing, even if what he's able to do supersedes what any person living is able to do, has changed to where now all he wants to do is just be left alone. The most interesting thing to me about this issue number one is that right there. If there's anything to bring me back to want to read a issue number 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, how many issues this goes, I'm interested to see what happened to make him change his perspective on what he's capable of. You know, I don't know if this is quite on the same scale as a Dr. Manhattan going to Mars and just kind of washing his hands with humanity.
Yeah.
But I like that we see that there is that doubt there, you know? It's one thing to have the ability to do whatever it is that you want to do, but it's another thing to believe that your ability can actually make something change. You know, this isn't Black Superman. Clearly, this is not Black Superman. I'm interested to see where this is going to go based on that alone. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, for sure, man. I mean, Black Superman would have stayed positive throughout the whole time. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? He would have kept trying. He would have kept inching his way towards success. You know, like we hardly see Superman down and out. And if that's the case, he's never down and out for too long. You know, this guy, you got to think about it. Since 1843, for almost 200 years, Lord knows how long he's been down. Lord knows how much failure he's met in the
Mm-hmm.
200 years. Who knows, of all the periods, if you think about the era of slavery, the era of Jim Crow, Reconstruction, just how much shit he
Right.
possibly could have went through to be like, fuck it, man, we can't win. I'm just gonna sit and chill in my mansion till whenever, right? I think the original reason why he stays in his mansion or he stays on Earth because he doesn't have the technology to repair his ship and leave Earth. So he's waiting on humanity to get to the point where he can get his ship repaired and leave or whatever.
Oh man.
Yeah, yeah. So I think in the original series, Rocket is that anchor to humanity for him and an anchor to see a positive outlook of humanity. And in this series, we'll see if that's the case again. It's looking like that with her. Um, but yeah, it looks like this dude, he gave up. He basically said, like I said, we ain't never gonna make it. And and I think he's just doing this to try to appease her, and maybe it sparked a little something in him to say, you know what, I'll give it another shot. Why not? Almost like I'll give it a shot just for you to see that it's not gonna work.
Yep.
Almost to the
Oh
point
man.
like that. You know what I'm
So
saying? Like just to
right.
just to give her bring it to reality. That might be his goal initially, and they might actually succeed for the first time in how long for him. So that's I can kind of see where that's kind of the driving point to buy issue 2 or issue 3 or issue 4. Can
Hmm.
they succeed? And what got him to the point of just giving up totally on humanity? You know, specifically the black people in America.
Man. And kind of just to kind of step out of this for a quick second here, right? In this current
Mhm.
era of this superhero comic book medium, I think more and more we're leaning into this idea of the overly powered people kind of not caring anymore. Like, and I like that. I like that. Okay, because we're past the point of the grand deconstructions in comic books now. We don't need those anymore. We already got those with, Watchmen,
Mhm.
Miracle Man,
Right.
um,
The
Dark
boys.
Knight. Exactly, the Boys, Dark Knight Rises,
Mhm.
Daredevil. We've already gotten even with Logan, we've already gotten our grand deconstructionist vibes out of the way. And I like that at least in some of these comic books, work and another one that we're going to talk about later on with Invincible. I like that we are just skipping all of the bullshit and cutting right to it. These people who have these superpowers feel as though we're not worthy of saving, right?
Right.
And I
Right.
like I like that we can just cut straight to that point. I like that we're not getting into something bad happening and then them just washing their hands with us. Like the story, if this is the redemption story of Icon, even though this is the reintroduction, that's more interesting than any origin story could ever be to me. You know what I'm saying? To me, that's more interesting than that. I don't need to see a version of Uncle Ben getting killed. I don't need to read a version of great responsibility and great power or a showdown in crime alley. I don't need to see any of that. If this is the story of Rocket bringing Icon back to understanding that yes, people are flawed, but they are worth saving, that's perfectly fine with me because how many introductions of comic book characters cut straight to that point there? I don't know too many that have done that. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? And that'll be something fresh and different. Um, now, I do want to ask you this here. Do
All right,
you
go ahead.
what do you think about the sudden change in the character of Raquel? Like, does it really just take 24 hours and seeing something you've never seen before to make a person feel as though they need to change everything in their life? Like, does witnessing a superhero, is that enough for somebody in real life to instantly want to become a superhero? Like, never mind this relationship that she might have been in with this fucking dumbass guy. Never mind the dates and the gifts and the text messages and all of that. All it
Mhm.
takes is one interaction with a superhuman being for you to no longer want to go down this path. Like, does that really seem realistic to you? Because I feel like that's what Vonell was kind of alluding to with the review of Static Number One.
Mm.
Like, are we
Uh,
putting that part in the microwave a little bit?
Oh shit. Okay, here we go. Here we go. I think I got this. I think I got this. All right. So the first series of Icon and Rock in the 90s. Rock Icon was pretty much presented as like a black conservative. He was basically in a mindset of if black people would just pick up their bootstraps and get to work, they can fix they can fix all the problems in the world that they have. And Rocket was the answer to saying no, that is not the case. Um, and the Rocket in the '90s, she used more slang. She was a little bit more hip. She was a little bit more, um, I wouldn't say like stereotypical, but she was more street. Let's just say that.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say the appeal for her was that it was cool. The appeal for her was like I want to be a sidekick because it's cool and beating up supervillains and getting attention, and this would be such a cool thing to do. I think the lure for her was like I'm gonna use like oh we're gonna be doing good for the community and doing good for everybody was kind of like the lure to convince him to become a superhero. The original series. While in this one, she's definitely more articulate and more of just like a nerd in this one, right? She wants a typewriter, she reads books. She definitely doesn't use as much slang as the 90s one. She's a lot
Oh
more
man.
reserved. You know, she doesn't have the big hoop earrings or nothing like or nothing like that, you know? So I think in this one it was like, well, she already seems smart enough to know that you're in bad company. Um, and this one, it seems like I think they could have reworked her origin differently because she seems too intelligent and self-aware that oh my gosh, I'm in bad company. This is going to be a bad direction in my life. I should leave these guys and join this guy and make him a superhero and we could change the community together. I think definitely could be reworked into something else whether she saw an incident of him preventing a robbery or something and see some abilities of him and thinking that maybe we could use somebody like him or something like that. But I do think it's within 24 hours to just be like, wow, my life is really going to shit. I should change and I will go to this guy to become a superhero or a sidekick. I think that's a little bit I don't know. I think that's a little bit fast. I think it is a little bit fast for 24 hours. Just sleep on it and the next day boom, here I am. I have this grand idea. Let's
With
do this.
with zero skepticism, right?
Right.
Zero skepticism, bro. Like that's the only that part there is kind of the only thing that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. Because we gotta go back to the introduction. The first time that our I guess we'll say antagonist see this guy, he's in his house with his shirt open, floating. Like, you know what I mean? I don't know if
Yeah.
you instantly go right back the next day with zero skepticism and decide maybe he could be a superhero. Maybe he is the guiding light that can change everything. You know, I, again, human nature doesn't suggest that that is a realistic possibility. So I get that it's a comic book, but if we got characters that are packing heat on breaking on B&Es, we like come on, man. And even then, if I'm Icon and you were an accessory to what could have potentially have been my attempted murder, I need more proof of what your intentions are. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But it is what it is, right?
Yeah, right. She could have easily asked him, "Why did you spare us yesterday?" You know, just to get a little bit more of intel as to who you are, because that's such a short amount of, I guess, data to process to be like, "Oh, he's trustworthy. Oh, he's the light, and he's the solution to all problems." Like, no, you got a dude who's has a six pack, lives in a in a mansion, who's lived for like 200 years and floating with powers, and you know, like why is he isolated? Why like you don't know? You just got lucky. He could have literally washed all of you that one
Man,
night, you
badly,
know,
badly.
badly, and no one would have a clue what happened to you. No one would
Yeah.
have the cops would be like would chalk it up to street violence and that be it. You know, like that'd be it. You're dead.
Oh man.
So yeah, it's a little bit too soon for her to do that kind of a turn, but I get it. It's issue number one. They kind of want to get right to it with number two. Um, I think they could have had a little bit more of an interaction between the two to kind of naturally get to that point. Um, yeah, I think they. I mean, is there anything really to? Is there anything you would cut to kind of maybe get to that point faster? Not faster, but to naturally get to that point with that conversation to even bring up that sort of comfort and trust that this is a person I can trust and suggest something to like this.
Well, the thing to if anything, just kind of being honest here, what any conversation between the two parties that's taking place in his house should have started with an apology from her.
Mhm.
It should have
Right.
started. It should have started with an apology of, hey, I apologize for breaking into your house. I apologize for, the company that I was with and the actions that we were setting out to do when we did what we did. That's where it should have started at. But whatever. The only thing before we even utter the word superhero, the conversation should be, okay, how are you able to do that? What happened to where you are able to do that?
Mm-hmm.
And how long have you been able to do that? Why are you in these pictures? Why are you in this picture from this time and this picture looks like it's from another time? You know, the pieces of the puzzle could have gotten put together in a more kind of organic type of way as opposed to instantly the word superhero. For me personally, bro, I don't like when the word superhero is used in superhero media because that kind of just waters it down for me. One of my least favorite parts of Avengers Endgame is when Colonel James Rhodes utters the words, "Well, we're all about that superhero life." Yeah, you know what I mean? I don't. For some reason, that kind of bothers me. That's like when you watch wrestling and they say sports entertainment instead of wrestling.
Yeah,
Like,
that's true. Yep.
or,
That's spot on, man. Oh shit.
you
Damn.
know what I'm saying?
Uh
Like in The Walking Dead, in the Walking Dead universe, there's no such thing as a zombie.
for good
So
reason. Yep. Yep.
exactly, because how would that sound if somebody's like, "Hey, that's a zombie over there, huh? A what? What do you? What? I don't like when the word superhero is used in this medium because it takes away from the suspension of disbelief a little bit. So some time should have been taken. He should have been more skeptical of her. Like after the apology, he should have slammed the door and said, "Don't come back here." And then the persistence of her in wanting to make a change should have been present after that. You see what I'm
Mm.
saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like the persistence of, okay, yes, you told me I need to fix my life, and I'm making an attempt to do that by continuing to come to your doorstep until you tell me what I want to know. That would have been a little bit more organic.
Ooh.
As you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, dog. Shit. And then you have the first 5 pages, which is the alien backstory. You start that off with issue two because now you know she's talking directly about him. Now you're getting a little bit of the backstory and the background of Icon's history. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
man, that flow is he could have definitely reordered that a bit. We start right off with them breaking in. And you skip those 6 pages so we can get that natural progression of them trusting each other.
Yep. Yep.
Damn.
You see what I'm saying? Because
Mm-hmm.
in one day we go from trying to steal a typewriter to pulling up at his doorstep with a sketch of costumes. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
like Vonell is gonna have a field day with issue
Oh,
number.
he is. He's gonna find every like he's just gonna be calling it out how it is, man. He is.
So overall, like I don't want to seem like we're being like negative about it because this wasn't a bad comic book, and there is a lot to be desired, but I'm hoping that they take the opportunity to kind of fill in the blanks. You know, we kind of just fantasy booked an issue number one a little bit better than what came out on page,
Right.
but overall, this is about a 7 out of 10.
I agree with you too, and here's the thing: the difference between this book, this issue number one, and Static number one, is that the origin is still in this number one. You could have never read Milestone Returns Zero, and you've been okay. With Static, you almost needed that because his backstory was in his origin was in that issue. So I like that he kind of just didn't, there was no allude to that recon, that intel that they were getting on the
Man,
deswirler
man.
or or that world stage conference they had, and he was talking about how humans bad and they're backwards and shit like that. There's none of that in this. I like it's kind of like that shit was self-contained. That was almost just like a bullshit. I'm not sure it was time constraints. I'm not sure it was just the direction, but it's definitely it's a day and night book between that Milestone Returns Zero and this Icon of Rocket number one. So
Yep, they're doing much better.
they're
I'm gonna
doing much better. Yeah.
say a market improvement from issue zero, bro. So,
He hurts
um,
them. He hurts them bad.
I don't know who wrote that. Like, I don't know if that was Mr. Hudlin or not, but whoa, like at this point, issue zero might as well like they might as well have never even done an issue zero. Issue zero was probably not even necessary, seeing as how we're getting, I don't even think I'll be very surprised if season one of Icon and Rocket even addresses that situation again.
Probably not. I think I think they got the time and they got a story in place. I don't think we'll ever go back to I think the one thing that issue zero did was reference that they're gonna attack the drug lords and the drug dealers and clean up the streets, which so far in this issue number one, it looks like that's what they're alluding to do. I'm not sure they're gonna go to Colombia like they did in issue zero, but it looks like that one is gonna be pretty much self-contained and it'll hold no it will be non-canon essentially, and for the better, because yeah, that shit was trash, and this is a much improved story. And despite what we were saying with the dialogue and the pacing, if this issue number one continued like issue zero, this would have been easily a 4, 5 out of 10 if it was even lucky. But the fact this is kind of average, this is a 7 out of 10. I think that definitely tells you that they got some competency in making this comic.
Mm-hmm. I agree, and the good definitely outweighs the negative here, and I'm looking forward to seeing issue number two, man. They got my interest so far. I just hope that they kind of keep this a little bit more contained here. I do have a question for you in regards to Milestone Comics here, man.
All right.
Hardware. Okay, and this is gonna kind of play into Static as well. Hardware is a regular human being, correct?
Correct.
Does Hardware have an alias or a government name?
Yeah, his name is Metcalf.
Okay. I
Yeah,
figured.
Metcalf. Yeah.
I
That's him.
figured. I figured that towards the end of static issue number 2 that there was some kind of cross promoting there, but